Cool. So we want to talk a little bit today about songwriting, and I love this subject because I'm just fascinated by it, and really because I don't quite even understand it still after doing it for you know 10, 12 years now. A lot. It's still very mysterious to me how you can sit in a room either by yourself and with another person, and a song didn't exist, and all of a sudden it does. It's invisible work of art. It's there, and maybe eventually it gets recorded. But it's just a fascinating process. And so, yeah, really, I want to kind of talk today about songwriting, not as an expert really, but as somebody who is just kind of fascinated by it, and hopefully you can join me in that fascination. I definitely don't have the answers. I almost feel like, if you ever listen to like a preacher talk about God, and they almost come across as sort of an expert on theology or an expert on God. It's pretty absurd, and it's pretty it makes you kind of skeptical. I don't want to come across that way. I want to come across as somebody who's also in the process of learning all these things. I do think when we talk about art, when we talk about beauty, at least from our standpoint, it is subjective. I believe it is. There are objective truths and things that are true, that are always true because God is there, because God is true, and because God exists. I think beauty is objective, but from our standpoint, there's some grayness. But I think through conversation, through the wisdom of the church, us talking about these things, we can come to a better understanding about what beauty is and what are some principles that can kind of guide us in our songwriting. So I want to kind of start this first little bit. I want to talk about songwriting kind of from a 30,000 foot view, about really what it is to make art, and kind of some things that can guide us in that. And then I want to talk about the songwriting in general, and then I want to talk about songwriting specifically for corporate worship or for church songs. So we can start with talking about making art in general. The first word that I want us to kind of come around when we think about this is the word wonder. Um, and this idea is so crucial as when you're talking about making art. To be in a space, in a place of wonder, is so crucial because we have to ask ourselves, I think, if we're talking about making songs or making art, why are we doing it? Are we doing it just because like I want to just write a song for the sake of writing a song, or I want to write a song that a lot of people will hopefully hear, or I want to write a song so I'll be famous or something ridiculous like that, right? But right, all of us have those kinds of thoughts, and all of those things are they're out of focus with, I think, what it is to actually make great art, which starts from this place of wonder, of sincerity, because like what C.S. Lewis, he said that an artist is not someone who says look at me, but someone who says look at that. So one of my favorite definitions of art is transfiguration of the commonplace. A guy named Arthur Danto said that. So Jesus on the Mount of Transfiguration, he was transfigured before the eyes of the disciples, right? He really became who he is, or who he was in that moment to them. Prior to that, there was sort of this shroud over him, but he showed his glory in that moment. And really, that's what the goal of art is. It's this idea of wonder. It's to show the real worth and the real value, the internal value of things as they are, the power of what they are to people. And as someone who's as an artist, we can't do that really until that happens for us. Right, so to begin in a place of wonder, in a place of awe, to look around at the world God has made, or at God Himself, and to say, all right, what am I just in awe of? Right, not thinking about, okay, what song am I going to write first of all, or how am I going to be remembered one day, or all these kinds of things. But the primary question, like a place to start, is what inspires wonder inside of my heart? What am I amazed by? Right? What am I transfixed on? Um, in the person of God or in what He's made, and that's where you want to go, right? That's what you want to write about because that's what's inspired you. And what an artist does is he takes his awe and wonder at the world, and he brings people along with them into that awe and wonder. So that's kind of really the great place to start. So the next thing we want to consider when we create art is this idea of incarnation, and so the incarnation is God becoming flesh. He's fully God and He's fully man, and that's really what we want to happen. What we want to happen when a work of art is made. We want to make the ineffable tangible, right? We want to bring it to people so that they can comprehend it, so that they can get it. But there has to be, so Aristotle, he taught this idea of the golden mean, that the place of perfection or beauty, truth, of goodness is this perfect balance in two extremes. And when we create a work of art, that's kind of the spectrum we're trying to hit. So there's a balance between mystery and clarity. And it's exactly what we have in the incarnation, right? It's fully God, fully man. God is mysterious. He's beyond. He's infinite. He's, incomprehensible, unknowable, and yet He comes in this person of Jesus, and He talks to us, and He reveals Himself to us. And it's both. It's not one or the other. So it's balancing mystery and clarity, balancing freedom and form is another way to say that, balancing chaos and order. So to bring this down to like talking about songwriting, if a song is too mysterious, or there's too much freedom, or there's too much chaos, all right, we don't connect with it, right? It's too much, too beyond. It's like Radiohead and the weird stuff. But at the same time, if a work of art is too clear, if it's too tangible, if it's too bottom shelf, then it doesn't. There's no awe in it. It doesn't change us. It doesn't create wonder inside of our heart. Right? It's too clear. It's too ordered, and so it's too easy. Right? Or maybe a lot of like modern day pop music would fit in that category. But the place we want to hit when we create a work of art is this idea of incarnation, where we don't compromise any of the truth, any of the beauty, any of the majesty, the transcendence, but at the same time we make it tangible and touchable for people. So that's incarnation. The next idea when we talk about creating a work of art, I'm going to kind of run through a few of these, is truthfulness. So is it true when you're and this is especially, I guess, applicable when you're talking about writing songs for the church, for corporate worship, to think about, all right, is this true? Is what I'm saying, are the words true to who God is, to who to what God has done? But it's true for all sorts of songs, and a song is either a work of art or it isn't. Many times on this basis of truthfulness. Is it true? A lot of what's on pop radio just isn't true, and we all know it. Like going out and partying and all that kind of stuff, and they kind of sing about how great it is and how much joy in life that brings, right? We all know that that's just not true. It's not truthful in what it's conveying, and so it's not a work of art. So is what you're writing truthful? The next idea is authenticity. So a good work of art is authentic to the artist, who they are, right? So it's not this idea that's kind of over here that you just say, oh, I think I'll do this. There's a when you talk about or sing about something that you're passionate about, there's going to be a measure of clarity, right? The idea of sincerity is the mother of clarity, right? So if you're sincere about something, about an idea, about a topic, whether it's something that you're learning about God or something that you're just you're going to be able to speak about that with a measure of sincerity and clarity that is really unique, and that there's a razor's edge to it. It cuts, and there's something real about it. And so authenticity is, to think about, like, is what I'm writing about resonating really with my heart. Another idea is excellence, right? So it's a pretty basic thing, but just musicianship and what you're bringing to the table. Obviously, to create a work of art, you want it to be done with excellence. You want it to be done well. You want it to be practiced in what you're doing. Another idea is narrative. So in good works of art, whether it be visual art or music or whatever, there's usually a thread, a narrative of hope. And so to think about that is crucial. You want to write a story, and every song is not going to have like an entire story, obviously, but to have the rhythms of and the threads of hope in that movement in your art is really important, because really the world is built on a story. All of us have a story. We everybody relates to a story. Everybody loves a story, and we all know that the flow and the narrative of a story is there's an introduction, there's conflict, and there's resolution, and that's the story of the gospel. And really, a great work of art will have this thread or narrative of hope or redemption in it. The next idea is suitability. So Francis Schaeffer, he talked about form and content being together in a work of art. So and those going together. So in other words, like the form, the sound of the music, for example, matching the content, the lyrics of the song, perhaps. So you might, like, for instance, if you're writing a song, it's a sad song about suffering and darkness and life not going well. You probably don't want to have that set to like a happy, bouncy kind of music, because the form and content are not matching, right? They're not, and this is actually a big issue, I guess, with a lot of pop music, both I guess Christian and secular, is that the form and content aren't matching up, right? You're a lot of stuff you hear on the radio. It sounds so perfect, and it sounds so, everything is like quantized, and someone's voice is tuned perfectly, and the sound, it's so happy and it's so fun. But you listen to that and you say, all right, is life really like that? Does life really feel like that? And I think the answer is no. Life feels a lot more raw. It feels a lot more broken than that. It feels a lot more vulnerable than that. It feels a lot more, frankly, like sad than that. And if we're honest, and it's just there's something more than that. And so to match the form and content is important in what you're doing. If you're singing a song about celebration and maybe God's love and God's grace, then certainly I think to match that with a upbeat kind of type of music is certainly suitable. There are times when to use irony can work, like so when you're writing a song and you kind of purposely put those at odds with one another, the form and the content. And so if you write a song with a really happy sort of a lyric with a sad kind of a sort of a sound or music, that you can do that. There can be kind of an ironic effect that you can use, but I would say, like, to try to use that on purpose and not let it happen on accident. So another idea when we're talking about creating a work of art is this word helpfulness. So the second commandment. So the first commandment is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. The second commandment is love your neighbor as yourself. And this is a big one that a lot really I gathered this a lot from Tim Keller's book Every Good Endeavor. He talked a lot about just how work itself is meant to be a service to humankind. And if it's not that, then it's not really work. It's not really a calling. And so to think through songwriting and creating art as a calling, and to have in view, have one eye really on God and how you can be pleasing to Him, but to have another eye on your neighbor and just asking yourself, okay, how is this going to help this person, right, or this community or this people. It's so crucial and it's so important, and it will actually shape what you're doing in a big way. And then the last idea when talking about creating a work of art is just the idea of worship, and this applies to any kind of art that you're making, whether it's you're writing a song or whether you're doing a painting. Is 1 Corinthians 10:31, whether you eat or you drink or whatever you do it to the glory of God. So what's your muse? Why are you doing what you're doing? And to write a song, with God ultimately in view, to say, God, I want this to be pleasing to you. I want this to be, a beautiful sound in your ear, and at the same time, I hope it helps other people. But ultimately, I want to do this for you and for your honor and for your glory. So that's kind of art from a 30,000 sort of foot level, and kind of want to go in now to more songwriting principles.